The Vardaxian Combat Academy stood as a towering monument to military superiority. Or at least, that's what their marketing brochures claimed. Perched on the edge of the Orion Cygnus arm like a cosmic peacock flaunting its feathers, the Academy had spent 3 centuries churning out the galaxy's most insufferably elite warriors. You know the type. The ones who could disassemble a plasma rifle blindfolded while reciting their species' war poetry backwards in their native tongue. Excellence through combat, the Academy's motto declared, translated into 17 languages, each version carefully engineered to sound as pompous as possible. Crystalline spires jutted into the violet sky of Kepler 449b like accusatory fingers, as if saying, "Look upon our works, ye peaceful civilizations, and despair." The campus was a masterclass in architectural intimidation. Training halls floated on anti-gravity platforms, because apparently buildings that obey gravity were for lesser species. The central arena where today's spectacle would unfold seated 50,000 and often did, especially for graduation ceremonies, where proud alien parents could watch their offspring beat the consciousness out of training dummies. It was here, in these hallowed halls of militarized performance art, that lesser species came to prove they weren't quite as lesser as the galaxy thought. The Vardaxians, 7-foot-tall, 4-armed paragons of military virtue, had opened their academy to outsiders a decade ago in something called the Inclusive Combat Initiative. Roughly translated, it meant, let's see which primitive species can survive our training without a nervous breakdown. The mortality rate was conspicuously absent from the brochures. Enter Zara Mitchell, humanity's latest contribution to the Academy's growing collection of interstellar punching bags. First, she stood 5'6" in combat boots, which brought her about even with a Vardaxian's knee. Second, she had only 2 arms, which Vardaxians viewed as a cruel evolutionary joke. Third, and most importantly, she'd spent 6 months proving humans had the galaxy's most highly developed ability to take a beating. "Mitchell," barked Instructor Thrax during morning calisthenics, his forearms folded in that universal pose of academic disdain. Perhaps if your species had evolved proper limbs, you wouldn't need to rest between sets. Zara, currently doing 1-armed push-ups thanks to a dislocated shoulder from yesterday's light sparring, grunted out 50 more before collapsing. Around her, alien cadets performed their routines with a kind of effortlessness that made you want to check their bloodstreams for performance enhancers. Fixaria, a Zelenite, was bench-pressing what appeared to be a small shuttle while solving quantum equations on her datapad. Gorthak Jr., the 5th-generation son of the Malter warrior caste, looked like he could crush diamonds with his mandibles. And Cadet Zeta, the Arachne, flowed through combat drills with 8 legs that moved like they were operating in different dimensions. "Look at the human struggle," Zeta's partner chittered loud enough for Zara to hear. "I've seen hatchlings with better form." Zara wiped the sweat from her brow with her good arm, reminding herself why she was here. Something about proving humanity's indomitable spirit, showing the galaxy you didn't need claws, scales, or neuro-enhancing combat drugs to be a warrior. The recruiting officer had made it sound noble back on Earth. He was probably sipping espresso in New Geneva right now, far from the recycled starship fuel flavor of the Academy's rations. "Cadets," thundered a new voice. Instructor Corfax, the Academy's golden standard. 9 feet of burnished copper muscle, ceremonial scars, and lethal grace. He strode into the hall like a god of war in full lecture mode. "I am Supreme Combat Instructor Corfax," he declared, as though anyone in the galaxy might have missed the memo. "Master of the 7 sacred forms, defender of the outer reaches, 3-time champion of the Galactic Combat Games." He paused dramatically, his 4 eyes scanning the room. "I have killed more enemies than most of you have had hot meals." Then, his gaze landed on Zara. "Except perhaps our human cadet," he added, oozing condescension. "Tell me, Cadet Mitchell, what is your species' most advanced martial art? Throwing rocks? Pointed stick combat?" The cadet snickered. Zara kept her face neutral. "We have several traditions, sir," she said evenly. "Some dating back thousands of years." "Thousands?" Corfax's mandibles clicked in laughter. How quaint. We were perfecting war while your ancestors were figuring out which end of the stick was the dangerous one. Over the next few weeks, Corfax made it his mission to demonstrate why humans were a galactic joke in martial training. Zara became his favorite example, failing complex techniques designed for species with surplus limbs. Observe, he'd say, performing a move with all four arms before turning to Zara with a cruel grin. Perhaps Cadet Mitchell would like to attempt this, with her limited anatomy. The physical pain was expected. The psychological torment was what nearly broke her. He gave her unreadable texts, paired her with elite sparring partners, and dissected her every failure in front of the class. Your species' combat philosophy appears to be, try not to die too quickly, he sneered. Then came the day that changed everything. It started like any other. Corfax demonstrating technique. Zara forced to assist. He struck her with a deliberate slap. Less training, more theater. The room froze. Even the cadets stopped laughing. No, Zara said quietly. Corfax blinked, confused. I beg your pardon? I said no, she repeated louder. I won't be your demonstration dummy anymore. You dare, I challenge you. The words hung in the air like a live grenade. Even Corfax looked taken aback. You challenge me? He asked. You who can't even execute a basic throw without injury? In the central arena, tomorrow, midday, the arena erupted. A formal combat challenge was a sacred tradition, one that usually ended in hospitalization. Corfax smiled like a shark. Very well, I accept. I hope your species has good funeral customs. As the class dispersed, Zara touched her bruised cheek and smiled. Let them laugh. Let them bet. They didn't know the year she'd spent at a Shaolin temple, or her black belts, or the truth of what her master had taught her. Break the mind, and the body follows. Tomorrow they'd see what human warriors were really made of. Drawn by the promise of watching a human get dismantled by one of the galaxy's premier warriors, spectators flooded the Vardaxian Combat Academy. Initially hesitant about the optics of such a wildly mismatched fight, the Academy's administrators changed their tune the moment they realized its publicity potential, a chance to showcase Vardaxian martial supremacy. It was too good to pass up. All channels, Administrator Corval had declared, all 6 of his eyes gleaming with profit-hungry zeal. Let the galaxy see why our combat training is worth every credit. By midday, the arena was packed. 50,000 spectators floated in anti-gravity seating platforms, while dozens of holocams hovered to capture every angle of what was expected to be a brief, glorious demolition. The betting markets had gone haywire, odds of 1,000 to 1 against the human. A few contrarian gamblers tossed symbolic credits at her name, just to say they'd backed the underdog. In the preparation chambers beneath the arena, Zara Mitchell warmed up alone. She wore a crisp white gi, traditional and unassuming. Ceremonial bands were wrapped around her wrists and ankles. Gifts from her grandmother, each inscribed with ancient earth characters, patience, wisdom, strength. Meanwhile, in his chamber, Corax prepared with pomp worthy of a war god. His forearms were painted with sacred battle sigils, copper skin gleaming under layers of ceremonial oil. His armor bore the marks of all 7 sacred forms of Vardaxian combat. Confident and undefeated, he stretched fluidly, then addressed his attendants. This will be over quickly, he said with a grin, but I'll make it entertaining. The human deserves that much. The arena floor, a marvel of adaptive nanotech, shimmered under ambient energy lines. For this fight, the surface was set to neutral, flat, featureless, fair. Zara emerged from the tunnel. Laughter rippled through the crowd at the sight of her small frame. Some pitied her. A few, very few, noticed the calm, precise way she moved, like a coiled spring. Then Corax entered. The arena exploded in cheers. Towering and radiant, he raised all 4 arms in acknowledgement, his presence overwhelming. Citizens of the galaxy, the announcer boomed. Today's formal combat challenge. Supreme Instructor Corax, Master of 7 Sacred Forms versus Cadet Zara Mitchell of Earth. victory by submission, incapacitation, or other resolution. Everyone knew what other resolution meant. The med teams were already on alert. At center stage, Corax loomed over Zara like a monument to biological superiority. "There's still time to withdraw," he said, voice loud enough for the crowd. No shame in knowing one's limits. Zara bowed. "Thank you for the concern," she replied evenly, "but I'm exactly where I need to be." Corax's mandibles twitched. Where was the fear? The starting klaxon sounded. He struck first, launching into the first sacred form, a flurry of blows designed to overwhelm. His arms moved with blinding speed, each attack flowing like a symphony of destruction. Zara wasn't there. She didn't block. She didn't counter. She simply flowed around every strike, minimal motion, maximum efficiency. To the crowd, it looked like Corax was fighting a ghost. He growled and escalated into the second sacred form, tempest of blades. The air shimmered with the force of his attacks. But now Zara touched him. Gentle redirections, glancing taps. She was reading his patterns, weaving through them like silk through fingers. "Stand and fight," he barked, frustration leaking through his composure. "I am fighting," she said, ducking beneath a strike. "Just not the way you expect," the crowd murmured. This wasn't the spectacle they'd paid for. Snarling, Corax abandoned form for force. He unleashed the avalanche strike, a brutal overhead blow meant to obliterate armor and opponents. This time, Zara didn't evade. She stepped into the strike zone, a space no opponent had dared enter, and tapped a precise spot where his forearms met his torso. Corax's right side went dead. Two arms dropped limp. "Pressure points," Zara said conversationally. "Every species has them. You just have to know where to look." Silence fell. Then she attacked. But not like a brawler, like a surgeon. Her strikes were fast, clinical, devastating. She named each style as she used it: Wing Chun, Aikido, Jiu-Jitsu. She flowed from art to art, dismantling Corax's defenses, exploiting vulnerabilities his species hadn't known existed. Corax staggered. He tried to rally, tried to summon the third sacred form. Too late. Zara slipped under his center of gravity, twisted, and brought him crashing down. Before he could recover, she was atop him. Arms, legs, joints locked into a pin so intricate that several alien biologists began feverishly taking notes. "This is a modified katagatame," she explained. "Usually for 2 arms. I've made adjustments." "Yield," she said softly. "Never," Corax gasped. "Pop." The audience flinched as one of his shoulders gave out. "Yield," she repeated. Corax, supreme warrior of the Vardaxians, whispered, "I yield." Zara released him instantly, helping him to his feet as the arena held its breath. Then, applause. A ripple at first, growing into a roar. "You thought our lack of limbs made us weak?" She told him gently. "We evolved on a world that wanted us dead. So we studied, we adapted, we made combat into a science." In the days that followed, everything changed. The fight was broadcast across the galaxy. Military theorists dissected every frame. Applications from human cadets rose by 10,000%. Bookmakers went bankrupt. Corax became Zara's fiercest supporter. He integrated human styles into the curriculum and quoted Earth proverbs with something like reverence. "I was humbled," he said later, his once unstoppable arms now flowing with Tai Chi grace, "and in that humility, I found wisdom." At graduation, Zara wore her white ging. Administrator Corval, eyes gleaming with pride, not profit, addressed the crowd. "Today we celebrate more than a graduation. We honor a revelation. That strength comes in many forms." Corax bowed to Zara, not as a superior to a student, but as one warrior to another. And across the galaxy, a new truth took root. Never underestimate the warrior with fewer limbs, but more imagination. Recruiters never mentioned. That part in their brochures, too dangerous for business, too human to ignore.